Let's continue this conversation about surface protection. We were going over taping and masking. An extension of that is going to be floor protection or just large surface protection. On a job site, we're painting. We need to keep everything clean. Sometimes the easiest way to keep something clean is just to cover it up. I've got a lot of different materials and methods we're going to do that with, starting with painter's tarps. These are going to be heavy cloth blankets or tarps that we'll use to spread out over areas. It might be to cover up furniture or just to protect floors. If you think about your floors, they're very expensive in a place. And if we're doing new construction, they're brand new. The last thing a customer wants to see is a new floor that's ruined by the final stages of finishing, like painting. So we need to always consider our floors our top priority to protect them. And a painter's tarp is going to do that very easily. We can throw this tarp down and it will offer us instant protection. We need to make sure that nothing gets under that tarp, because now we're walking on the tarp into, say, dirt, grit, or paint. That could be more of a problem. So we have to be, in our mind, a little more aware of what's going on. Usually you're going to have an underside or a bottom side of the tarp and a top side. Make sure that when you're laying them that you put the bottom or clean side down. That's going to give your floor the best protection. Now the top side can take whatever spatter, drips, or spills or dirt that the job is producing. The presentation calls these out as painter's tarps. You might hear them called drop cloths. So when you hear your boss tell you to drop a room, he's asking to take these cloths and lay them out so that the room can then be protected. If you're not using drop cloths, you might use a rolled paper product like this rosin paper. This is a construction material that will offer us a little more lasting protection for our floors. We're going to tape down the seams, roll it out. It works really good on hard floors like tiles, vinyl, and hardwoods. Anything where the floor doesn't give. Carpet, not so great because this would just tear. But if you have a hard floor, you can cover it with this, take down the seams, and you get a good solid protection until the job is done. Actually, we were setting up to paint this wall earlier, and I used this product, so let's take a look at that. I'm here in the classroom. We're getting ready to paint. We need floor protection. This is a hard floor, so I can use my rosin paper to do that. One thing to mention is we need space or surface on the floor to attach our tape to. I'm going to use this blue painter's tape. So we need to leave a little bit of a gap between the floor edge and the paper. And I want a nice tight edge there. And also don't forget on this side, anywhere you come to a wall edge, you need enough of a floor surface to attach your tape to and your rosin paper. Now we can roll this paper out and run it as long as we need to. It's time for my next run. Keep in mind this stuff is 3 feet wide and we need to overlap it just a little bit. So we'll go ahead and run this one right from here. So once I've established my overlap here, I'm going to come back and tape this seam down tight. Now we can tape off this seam, and you might be using duct tape for this. Blue tape will work just fine, but at this point, for connecting paper to paper, this is going to be permanent until we get rid of it. Once we get done with covering this floor, we're ready to paint. If in the process of the job, you end up with a nick in this rosin paper, you can always do touch-ups and maintenance with your tape and cover it. It's important that the floor is clean when we start so that this protection really works. There's nothing worse than having grit under this and then grinding it in. Also, any holes in here will let that grit through. So keep in mind, this is a layer, a barrier. We need to maintain it, and this is a very important step, floor protection, in the process of painting. I'm going to get back to this. I've got a small piece to fill in here, and I've got more to do down this way, so I'll see you in the next lesson. There are heavier duty versions of this rosin paper that you'll find. Some of them almost feel like cardboard. That's how heavy they are. You might hear the name X paper. That's a product name version. But as you see in the presentation, this stuff is claimed to be so much tougher than just paper that you can drive a forklift over it. I've never done the forklift trick, but let's just call it a thicker, more reusable, more permanent version of rosin paper. There are specific places in our building that are going to take the biggest hit when we're talking about floor protection. Anywhere that there's high traffic, that would be wherever the entry is, down the hallways, stairs, any places where you're going to have a lot of feet going back and forth, that floor is going to take a lot of wear. We need to protect this space even more than any other. And a good option for that would be a self-adhesive film. This is called Carpet Shield. That's the name brand of this one. And it's actually sticky. It will stick to carpet and any other surface. So this is only 24 inches wide. That's wide enough for us to run it down the middle of a hallway and protect it from any foot traffic that's going to be back and forth through there. Keep in mind that during a job, there's a lot of people passing back and forth, and we don't realize the wear and tear on those floors until the job is done. So this kind of protection is really critical. In prep for painting earlier, I was laying down some of this as well. Let's take a look at that. We need to protect our high traffic areas and wherever we're working, especially in the finished stages of construction like painting. So anywhere you have a hallway or where you're traveling in and out a lot, we need to protect it from all that foot traffic. Imagine if you stepped in some paint and you walked out of a building, you're going to track that all the way through. This self-adhesive plastic will keep that from getting into the carpet, and carpet is very difficult to clean. So I'm going to continue with that process here. This particular product sticks to a lot of different surfaces, even carpet. One thing to mention is that this stuff doesn't need to run all the way to the edges. It's only going to be where the feet will travel and where most of the damage could happen. At the end of a run, you're going to need to cut your material. You're going to do this with a utility knife, but make sure that you're not running that knife into your carpet and causing more damage than you're trying to protect. So at this point, I'm going to make a turn. I've identified my traffic path here. I'm going to go ahead and make this run. I'll see you in the next lesson. If you're making your living as a painter, a lot of your time is spent prepping and cleaning up. All of these materials we've talked about today in this process of floor protection only makes that job easier. So make sure you take all of this seriously and you think about your floors and how to protect them from the beginning of the job to the end of it.
Okay.
Begin. I would say begin. This video is a production of Trade Skills U, all rights reserved.